Hi, everyone. Welcome to part two of our three-part webinar series called Complementing Your Core Curriculum with Augmented Reality. My name is Virginia Whitehead, and I am a Senior Product Manager here at McGraw Hill. And tonight we're going to be focusing on gamification and augmented reality featuring McGraw Hill AR. Feel free as you guys are coming in, feel free to just say where you're calling in from or logging in from, I should say. I know based on the registration list, we've got people calling from all over the place. So please feel free to say where you're coming from. It's always fun to see. I know I'm in the Northeast, I'm in New Jersey. And it's cold here. I don't know about the rest of you. It's cold, cold, cold. Okay. So, as I said, I'm Virginia Whitehead, and I'm going to start by introducing our two panelists for tonight. If you were here last week, this will all seem familiar to you, but there are some people that were not here last week, and this is their first time. So join me in welcoming our panelists tonight. Jamie Donnelly, as I said last week, she is noted author and speaker on immersive technology. She was a teacher herself in the classroom for many years and then made the transition. If you've been on the ed tech circuit at all, you've seen Jamie speak at all of the big conferences. So we're so excited to have her here today. She was a big influence on me when we first got into the augmented reality market, and I started following her. So I'm so excited to have her on the call today. And I'm equally really excited to have Renee Dawson from Atlanta Public Schools here. She is an ed tech specialist in Atlanta Public Schools for years now, and she is also a Verizon Innovative Learning coach. And if you need a reminder on what that is, or if you weren't here last week, McGraw Hill AR, the augmented reality app that we'll be featuring throughout this series, was actually built in partnership with Verizon. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But she's a Verizon Innovative Learning coach. So she coaches the teachers at her school on all the coolest ed tech tools and how to use them in the classroom. So she's here to talk about how they use tools like this in the classroom. And next we have three very special people from McGraw Hill, three of my colleagues. They are content strategists at McGraw Hill, which basically means that they are content experts. So they are the brains behind these activities that we'll be showing you tonight. And so please welcome Margaret Miller, Jennifer Zampano, and Patrick Merchant. I think we can go to the next slide.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share how we're going to be participating collectively. So if you're joining us tonight, we want to hear from you. We want to hear feedback. We want to hear ideas. And this gives you a chance to participate in the presentation with us. So we'll be showing a lot of different things, but we want to give you a chance to reflect and participate as well. So you're going to be joining us as a participant in CuriPod. So if you're on right now your computer, you have two options. One option is to open up another tab on your computer and join us, and I'll share that information with you here shortly. The other option is to get on your phone and join us on your phone and participate in CuriPod through the browser. So you can open up the browser, and I'll give you that link now. So you're going to go to curie.live. And I'll put this here in our chat as well. Curie.live. And it always wants to autocorrect that for me. The code is going to be 340534. I definitely see people joining us right now, which is perfect. We're going to be watching the chat as we're going through, so we want to definitely hear from you. Feel free to put questions in here, responses, ideas. We'd love to see it. All right, and as we have people joining in, we're going to get started first with a poll. So we want to get more familiar with your use of augmented reality, how comfortable you are using it. And we're going to go ahead and get started right now. All right, so we'll give you 30 seconds. You actually have some options here. You can choose how comfortable you are. We're going to find out where you stand. And as you respond, we'll see those come in once the time is up. We see 30 so of you joining in right now, responding. That's perfect. And if you have not joined in, you're still trying to do that, go ahead and go to the chat. It has the link, Curie.live, and then the code. All right, this is where we're at. So we have just 2 of us tonight that feel very comfortable. That may have been our panelists, I don't know. We also have 7 of us that feel somewhat comfortable. And then many of us would call ourselves newbies. And then we have 9 that say, what did I just join? What's augmented reality? So we're going to go through that. Don't worry, because this is going to be fun. You're going to experience some new things for those of you that are new to this, and those of you that are exploring this kind of technology for the first time. All right. So what is augmented reality? We figured we were going to spend a little bit more time explaining this for you to kind of get a feel for what this technology is. So this is an example here in the McGraw Hill app. Kind of zoomed in. I'm going through and playing in one of the lessons, and it is slicing through different shapes. So there we have an icy. We also have a cereal box. So it brings out real products that kids would see on a daily basis. And then it was just showing what shapes they make when they are sliced. So students oftentimes on a flat piece of paper, they have a hard time connecting the dot to 3-dimensional objects that then can be turned into a 2-dimensional object, right? And it's really hard for them to grasp that concept. But using this tool in augmented reality, they're able to really understand it because it's, 1, applicable to them, and 2, it's actually placed in their world. So it's taking your real world here and digitally layering an items, experiences inside of your real world. So it's giving you this illusion that something exists, like an icy or like a cereal box on your table. So it helps you connect those dots because it feels very realistic and you can engage in with that content.
And if you have a backup camera on your car, those lines that show up on your backup camera, that's augmented reality. So you use it every day already. So this is just how we can use it in education.
Yeah, that's a good point, Renee. The stuff we use as adults would typically entail face filters for us to make sure it kind of gives us some makeup and fixes our hair and we look beautified. Those types of things that we use on our camera on a regular basis too.
Yeah. And you know what? I was just thinking too, like if you use like Wayfair or something like that, and they're like, do you want to see what this looks like in your room? Like how this couch would look. And you angle your camera, shoot your camera somewhere, and it overlays, the couch into your room through the camera. Like that's augmented reality too.
Yeah.
Amazon does it.
Amazon. Yeah. Amazon. Yeah. I actually remember testing out the size of a patio set in my backyard to see, is it the right kind of configuration for the space I'm trying to put it in? And once I was able to lay it down in augmented reality, I'm like, no, it's too far over here. And sometimes measuring those things, you just don't have a realistic view as to what it's going to look like. So 100%, a lot of the things we experience today, I mean, even trying on shoes, right? Like people are testing out shoe wear and clothing.
I was going to say glasses too. I pick out my glasses like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Vision Pro just came out. I definitely think that's applicable if you guys have seen those commercials. All right. So when we're talking about getting started with augmented reality, some of the things that you really want to just make sure you are set up as you're getting set up to try out even the McGraw Hill app. You want to definitely set some goals. You want to know what you want to accomplish in this. You want to have your objectives clearly listed and how that could be successful for your students. You want to definitely collaborate. I think this is one of the obstacles most people face is the teacher goes solo and says, I'm going to try this out. And they haven't collaborated with anybody else in their team or anybody else in the curriculum side or the IT side. And I definitely recommend bringing those other departments into the loop to help support you so you're not hitting any roadblocks along the way. And then having the right resources. Renee's going to cover that. Trust me, you're going to have all the right resources. And then evaluating the success and understanding, where did my students meet the goals that I wanted them to meet? Did they get a greater depth of understanding? How are you going to go back? And we will talk about that actually in the next webinar. So stay tuned. And then, of course, having a strong community to go back to and collaborate. You have a lot of people on here on the panel that do this work on a daily basis. And it's just great to have other people to connect with and learn from, as well as everybody else joining in here. If you want to connect with other people, oftentimes we have social channels and things of that sort. So this is a good way to get started and making sure that you're having success in using any technology, really. And I know we're going to get started with getting you right into the McGraw Hill AR app. If Virginia, do you want to cover that?
Yeah. So a couple things I want to note about this slide here that had come up in the previous session. So McGraw Hill AR, it is an augmented reality app that is free from McGraw Hill. There's a couple of different ways you can get it that I kind of want to expand upon here on this slide. So it comes basically in two different versions. There is an app version for mobile devices, so smartphones and tablets. That is where all of the available experiences currently live, is in the app version. So if you want to experience the app version, which has all of the subjects, math, science, and social studies right now, if you're watching this webinar on a laptop, you can use your mobile device, the camera on it, to scan that QR code, and it'll direct you to a page where you can download the app. You can also just look for McGraw Hill AR in the App Store or in Google Play. It's available for both Apple and Android devices. So I recommend downloading the app if you can, because that's where everything is. That's all the available experiences. We do have web-based versions, and those are strictly for if you want to access the app. I don't want to really call it an app. It's not an app if it's web, but if you want to access the experiences via a laptop or a Chromebook, you can go to mharonline.com. I will say, though, there's only 10 math experiences there right now, not everything that's in the app. By this summer, everything in the app will be online. So that's why I'm recommending, if you can, download the app onto a mobile device so you can see everything. Or you can just follow along if you're not ready for that yet. That's fine too. So app has everything. Web has 10 math experiences right now. And the web experiences too, you have to be on a laptop or like a Chromebook or a desktop computer, something like that. You can't go use your internet browser on your mobile device, on your smartphone or tablet. It won't work on internet browsers for mobile devices. You have to use the app on mobile devices. So just wanted to clear up a couple of those things. But it is free. And another thing I just wanted to say, if you are using a school device and you are running into problems, it's probably one of two things. If you're on an app, you probably have to go to an administrator and ask them to download the app from Apple has the Apple School Manager, something they have to log into and push out apps. So you probably have to ask an administrator to push out the app from the manager's account. Or if you're on a school laptop and for some reason the website isn't loading, it might be that an administrator at your school has to add that website to what they typically call a whitelist, an approved list. So just wanted to put those caveats out there in case you're having problems. But yeah, that's pretty much it. App or web, I highly recommend if you can do the app, because you'll see everything there.
Yeah, and I saw a good question in here from Tracy asking about technical requirements for downloading the app. What used to be actually quite difficult to have, you had to have the latest version of certain iOS devices to function with some of the augmented reality, is now pretty universally accepted on most devices. Not all, but I know that you have a list of technical requirements, iOS requirements listed as well, correct, Virginia?
Yeah, we have that. We can get that. Yes.
It's actually, yeah, when you go into the App Store, if you're on a mobile device, it will have those restrictions, those limitations. But like I said before, it used to be kind of difficult to do that. And now we're in a place where most devices should function with this augmented reality technology, which is really cool. All right, so I am excited to share a immersive newspaper with you called The Reality Times. We would love to see what you learn from this, taking a snapshot of something that you're learning, exploring as you have the app now and testing it out, taking a snapshot. We saw some really cool posts and we definitely want to see what you come up with. And if you do post it on social media and you use hashtag McGraw Hill AR, I pretty much went to like every social channel I can possibly think of. I prefer X is the place I typically use, but if you're an Instagram user or Facebook user, then you have a chance to be able to go in and post some things. And then I will respond back to you and ask you for your address, whatever address you want me to ship it to. I'd be happy to send you one of the immersive newspapers. Of course, McGraw Hill is on the front page because they're fantastic. All right. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Virginia.
Yes, thank you. Okay. And by the way, I didn't have time to do it, but if you go to, I know at least the App Store does have the list of requirements there. I was going to screenshot it in the interim, but I didn't have time to do that. Okay. So here's what we're doing here on the slide. And this might be a little redundant if you were here last week because we kind of talked through this, so that we didn't have this actual slide. Every activity in McGraw Hill AR is broken up into the same three ways. Three parts, I'll say. There's an observe, an explore, and an evaluate. Tonight, because we're really focusing tonight on like play and gamification, and that is really mostly in the explore part. So we're going to really be focusing on explore tonight. But there are these three parts. So in the observe, that is where students watch a narrated animation. It's also got captions as well. And that kind of sets them up for what they're going to be doing on their own in the explore part. And I will say it's done differently for the different subjects. So in math, it's very much like kind of previewing what they're going to be doing themselves. Because in math, there's a lot of manipulating of objects and sort of playing what if scenarios and stuff like that. And so a lot of times in math, it's sort of previewing the kinds of things that they're going to be doing on their own. With social studies and with science, it's like that too. With social studies, what we do more of is we set up the context for the time period that the activity takes place in to give them a little bit of that background and setup that would be good for doing the activity. So we kind of use the technology differently in each subject, and you'll see that in the Explore. Again, this is where the students are really working on their own. It's where they're interacting with the app, whether it's actually manipulating things, trying different things out, moving things around, simulating something. You know, it's different in the different subjects. So that's sort of the heart of the activities, as I like to say. And then the evaluate part, that's where the students apply what they learned and they answer a series of questions applying their knowledge. And so it's everything is broken up into those three parts.
Awesome. All right. Renee and I are going to kind of go through these. We're going to be talking through some of the things you can do. We have three different subjects we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to go through math, we're going to go through science, and we're also going to go through social studies. I'm going to just kind of speak higher level about this. Renee's going to talk about classroom application. And of course, since we have our amazing content strategists here, we're going to ask them maybe some background stuff that they might want to share, some insight into maybe something you wouldn't know. And certainly we wouldn't know, right? So I think it would be really cool to hear how these apps really kind of came into play and what was the inspiration and really why this is making an impact in a classroom. So starting off with math, looking at how we can visualize. I was a math teacher. I was a former math teacher. So for me, I had a ton of manipulatives in my classroom, but they were so expensive. They were very difficult to have, and oftentimes they get, lost or accidentally taken, or, they would just show up in different parts of my classroom that I'd find way later. It was really hard to clean up afterwards, and having sometimes these virtual manipulatives, if you will, are super important. But really what I love about this is that it really even digs in deeper into the concepts, and it makes it so relevant with the content. I don't know, Renee, have you seen on the math side how your students have responded to that?
They just are so much more engaged in the physical part of the math lesson because they have that hands-on opportunity, and it's engaging for them because it's something that's on a tablet or on their Chromebook. It's not just, they don't feel like they're back in elementary school sometimes playing with manipulatives. My middle schoolers sometimes shy away from them because they feel like they're kind of babyish. So this is more grown for them, as they like to say. And they just really like engaging with it and moving around and finding the space to have their own time with the activity. And I've really seen a lot of improvement in classroom engagement and test scores by using the apps, because by using the AR lessons, because they really love them and they learn from them.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that's very individualized. So they're able to go into that experience over and over and over and over, and sometimes have different effects every single time, depending on the lesson, right?
Right.
Different things. It's like, let me make a mistake 10 times. I know it's a mistake, but I'm curious what's going to happen when I make this mistake. It's just, it's really cool.
They can even watch the beginning part where it gives them the directions and kind of like the mini lesson over if they need to, or go back to it if they don't understand what's going on. So that's super helpful as well for our kids with auditory processing or other disabilities that need that reminder of what to do. So I've had, many teachers say this kid never does anything in class, and then we hand them the iPad with this app and they're the star of the classroom. So it works.
Yeah, 100%. Now, our content strategists here, anybody want to speak up about some of the, maybe we wouldn't know if we were playing the game, where it came from, or maybe even some of the things that you tried to do, but it didn't work and it came out even better.
So which game are you asking about? The slope one?
Yeah, let's go with the slope one. That sounds good.
So before we even do that, you guys talk about manipulatives. 20 years ago, I taught and I made a circle on a chalkboard by putting a trash can on it and putting the chalk, wrapping the chalk around it. That's how I made a circle with my manipulative. So it's much better to use the AR. But for slope, I wanted something fun, and I wanted to cover a topic that students can struggle with if they're not really good at algebra or anything. And slope is everywhere, and I went from one extreme of skiing to the other extreme of skateboarding, and I just thought it'd be a good fun thing for kids to relate with, and also having the kids play with the skateboarder and have them crash and have them succeed and everything. I just thought it added some more fun to learning slope as opposed to just teaching them rise of a run.
Absolutely. And oftentimes you hear kids say, when am I ever going to need this in life? Right. It's like, well, if you ever have a vehicle on a road, you might need to know slope, right? You might need to understand the grade that you're driving. And I just think it's really cool because I loved making him crash. Like when it came up and I finally got it right, it was like, oh man, like I was kind of hoping it was going to hit again. And I think our kids are like that, right? Like they want to play. And the gamified aspect of this, I think, is just so cool. And I'll share another one that we have here. All right. Oop, let's try that again. There we go. All right. So this is actually bringing in some of the spatial learning. This has not been officially released. You guys are literally getting insight into something that's not even official yet. I feel so
Here
privileged.
is a whole cherry pie. The pie has been cut into 2 equally sized parts. Each part represents 1/2 of the pie. Each half has been cut into equal parts. We now have 4 equal.
So it kind of goes through the learning aspect of it, understanding kind of, what we covered last week, understanding what this concept is and why we're learning it, so that you're ready to move on to those activities. So this particular activity is having to look specifically. I know it tells me here at the end. I think it's like wherever it demonstrates a third, I think. So who was in charge of making this one?
Oh, yeah, I could talk about this one. So in this one, they have to find groups of object where 1/2 of the group is orange. So it starts off with like an easier one, like, half. Okay. And then in the next one, which I don't think we have a video of, is like 2/3 or 1/3. The fractions get a little bit harder in each explore activity. But this is utilizing, it's not, I see someone just said it looks like VR, not AR. It is AR, but it utilizes something called spatial mapping, which is basically the closest you can get to VR without actually being VR. It's AR. There's no glasses. As you can see, this is just through the phone, but it maps your entire environment, not just like one area, like a tabletop, you know, or a desktop or the floor, whatever it is. It actually in the setup part, it maps your entire area, so it takes over the environment. But this is just me. I did this video. This is just me walking around. That's why there's a lot of movement. I'm walking around my room, so it's kind of like a scavenger hunt. Like they're going on a hunt for equivalent fractions. So that's how we gamified it in that sense, you know, and made it playful. You know, they feel like they're going on a scavenger hunt. You could see they had to like look up and down and walk around. There's a couple things in there I didn't get a chance to point out, but we have little teleportation icons. So knowing that sometimes students are in a limited space, if they don't really have the room to walk around, they can click on like a teleportation icon and it'll just zoom in right there. So we tried to keep that in mind as well. But yeah, so that's just like, it is AR, but it's a more immersive form of AR. And that's going to be released next week, I believe. So yeah, you guys are getting a little sneak preview of that.
And teachers that have like 20, 25 kids, I'm sure you're thinking, oh my gosh, where am I going to get the space to do this with all the kids? Don't be afraid to pair them up in small groups. There's enough problems in there. They can work collaboratively together. My students love working together on the AR apps when I go into a classroom and we don't have a ton of space to use. So don't be afraid to put them in small groups or in partners. They will still get the great experience through the AR app.
Yeah. And really we're looking at more of an advanced technology. We typically refer to this as mixed reality. So the technology involved is pretty cool. And the fact that it can be done on a device like a phone or a tablet, I think is just incredible. So really our students are just going to love it. So I'm excited to finally have seen that and get a sneak peek. And guess what? You got the sneak peek with them before it was even released, which is super cool. Who was in charge of this one?
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, building on what Renee was saying, I don't know if we've called this out. We may have last week, but in every Explore activity, there is a reset button. So it does, I've heard a lot of teachers say that they use in small groups because someone can go through it and then just hit reset and then hand off the device to the other person in the group. So like, and you were kind of alluding to this, Jamie, without saying like the reset button, but there is a reset button. So it is really, a lot of people use it with shared devices.
And that's typical classroom setup. Absolutely. I mean, a one-to-one environment is kind of rare. It's on the rare side. So having even it set up as a station is absolutely workable. Who was in charge of making this particular lesson? I'm curious.
Patrick.
That was mine again. Virginia's already talked about most of it, but with our first foray into spatial, I wanted to do a nice, big, fun environment. And actually, there were other options besides the jungle. I was thinking of doing the park, the beach, a cave, a zoo, you know, the ocean. And I actually reached out to everybody on my team and said, hey, which one do you guys think's the best? And we all agreed with the jungle. So that's why we picked the jungle, because the whole team agreed to it. But with fraction, it was we wanted to hit lower grades, and fractions is always a major challenge. And it could be even for my tourist school, I had some high school kids who struggle with fractions. So we want to hit lower grades and we want to hit fractions and we want it to be fun. So the whole idea is a scavenger hunt and to make it fun to find equivalent fractions.
Yeah. And just to build on what he said, I think I remember one of the reasons for my vote on jungle. And I think this actually came, Renee, as a conversation with you when we first met, because you had said, and I think you said this last week, that because you're in Atlanta, and one of the reasons why you said your students love the slope activity is they never get to ski. So it's kind of a cool thing that they get to experience. And I remember remembering that in my head when Patrick asked for our votes, I was like, well, most kids, at least in the United States, don't get to experience the jungle that much. Like they go to parks and they go to the beach, and there's obviously, you could make them all cool, right? But that was sort of fresh in my head as the reason for my vote was like, oh, it's not every day that kids around here get to go to jungles or experience jungles.
Yeah, they
So
definitely thrive in the environments that they're not used to on the app. They
Mhm.
really enjoy those, and it's like a new experience for them. So, and with fractions, this is going to be great for your upper level kids, because I know a lot of middle grades and high school, like Patrick said, still struggle with fractions, but you might not have those fraction tiles that you have in K-5 classrooms. So this is going to be really helpful for a lot of students, and they don't even realize they're learning most of the time. They just think they're playing a game.
Yeah. And what's so cool is we're not just talking about math. Although, I can stay in the math section all day. I will say about this though, on the math side, is I used to dress up as a clown and have a fraction carnival, because I was like, all right, all kids hate fractions, but they love carnivals. So let's like app smash this, right? I was the scariest looking clown you ever saw. The littles were terrified of me. It wasn't intentional, but they all created games that were all about fractions, but they created them and then they had to run their own game. And then they got to play other games. But this is so true. Our students have had such bad experiences, and to be able to come into an app where it's so user friendly and so geared towards getting them actively learning and having fun, I just think that's spot on, exactly the way our students need to have a memory of understanding things like fractions, so that as they move into progressively more difficult mathematical concepts, they're not afraid of it. They have good memories of that. So true. All
I used to
right,
buy pizza to teach fractions, and this is way cheaper because it's free.
it's true. Oh yes. Although they were loving the pizza, I'm sure. All right, so exploring science. So we're going to move into the science curriculum. I will be honest, I have just started testing some of the science content because for a long time it was math. And then they started rolling in some science, and that's somewhat new. And so getting and exploring some of these were really cool. So I went in today and gathered a couple recordings here, and I believe I got one. Yes, this one is actually from Virginia. So I'll go ahead and play this. Virginia, do you want to talk through this
yeah,
particular one?
can you pause it before I talk just so I could set it up a little bit? Is that possible?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And Patrick was behind this one too, so feel free to jump in if I, leave something out. But so this is science, it's law of reflection, and there is actually, I never thought about it before, but I was also an English teacher, not a math or science. But mini golf or putt golf, whatever you call it, actually has a lot of geometry and physics in it. So and if you think about it, a mini golf course has a lot of obstacles, right? So there's a lot of possibility for banking shots and angles and stuff like that. So Patrick came up with this idea of having students use the law of reflection when it comes to estimating their shots on a mini golf course, So the idea here is you are trying to get a hole in one, or get in one shot or in as few shots as possible. I have not been able to get it in one shot. It has taken me at the minimum 3. I think I was lucky in one. But you'll see when she starts playing the video in a moment, like you use your finger on the ball to simulate like a backswing and try to angle it at the right angle, applying what you've learned about the law of reflection. So you can go ahead and play it now. I just wanted to set it up.
There are games through iMessage that I play, and it's pool. I play against my daughter all the time. She beats me really bad, but she understands angles for her to be able to play me successfully. As I was watching this, I was thinking, wow, this is so cool, because these are things kids play on for a long time voluntarily. And now we're actually applying it back to content and curriculum that are really important for them to gather. So again, going back to the playfulness, the gamification of this, so fun.
And it shows you that your reflections at the end, like just before, so you can see the angles that you had. I think in this one
it does. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But this kind of, it stays true to like we said before, when possible and when relevant, we try to apply concepts to the real world. So this is a really good example of it with science.
And if you really want to mix it up with this, after you do this app, grab like a putt putt thing, a club and a ball and a little green space, and try and have them do it without the angle arrows. The kids were freaking out. We tried that, and they were like, "No, where are the arrows? We need the arrows." So try and have them, take it into actually the real world, and they had so much fun with it.
Oh, that's so cool to hear.
All right, and the next one is looking at the circulatory system. This was taken right here on my desk today. I played with this one, but I don't know. Today it just finally oh my goodness, I was missing the whole point because I was so zoomed in to the person. I did not connect the dots until I was zoomed out. And then I saw that I'm essentially dissecting here. Who's our content specialist on this one?
We kind of share this one.
Okay.
Margaret and I and Patrick kind of divvied up all the science ones. This one and along with some of the other body systems that we cover are really great because they help students connect to content that is complex. So typically, and touching on Renee's point earlier, middle school students don't get manipulatives for like bodies, human bodies in science class, right? You have the diagrams in your textbooks. Maybe you get to watch a video and see how things work, but they don't get to dissect a human body or play with parts of a human body to really make it, memorable to them. So using a 3D model was one way we knew we could make it playful and interesting. One of the things we go back and forth when we do some of the body systems is sometimes we're like, "Ooh, that's really kind of gross," or "That is really realistic." But also that's what makes it fun and interesting for the kids because they want to come back and see not only what the parts and the names are, but also how do they all fit back together. So it's kind of a puzzle or a matching game. That's where the gamification or the playfulness comes in. But the other part to that too that we loved about, and the science, we're coming out with 10 or 11 more science ones in the next year. So what's really great about the ones, and Virginia probably knows the exact number, but one of the great things about that is they can be used at any point within the teacher's lesson. So if they want to use an AR circulatory system activity to introduce the lesson, they can introduce the lesson. If they want to use it for review, if a student's doing a study guide or notes, my daughter's in middle school and she always has a note packet that comes home with every unit that they have to fill out. And what better way to help the kids study for a test or even review the unit would be to allow them to pull up the AR, review it in the observe, and then take it apart and put it back together. So it really complements anywhere in your lesson, which was what we wanted.
That I will say science did not work for me in most cases, but I want to blame my instructor because I think if it was presented to me in this way, I think I would have been all over it. I would have loved to play, and dissect. I wouldn't have formaldehyde, right, to smell. I would be able to just play with everything and that would be super cool. So I think that this, again, going back to just how enjoyable the experience is. I mean, how many of us can say kids enjoy learning, and oftentimes that's not the case. They're having to memorize, they have to do something, they're required. They struggle, but then to have an opportunity to play and learn and have fun, that's so cool. We're going to move on to, Renee, did you have something to say?
No, somebody asked in the chat if there are lesson plans and worksheets, and the answer is yes, and they are free, and I'm going to talk about them soon.
Absolutely. We're going to move over to social studies now. And I had so much fun playing this game. Now, I will tell you, Virginia told me about this, and I was like, that sounds really cool. An assembly line, like, hey, I wonder what this is going to be like. Let me go ahead and push play because I don't know what the high score is. I think I got to 18 on this one. But you have to put on the wheels and then you have to get it to stay. I don't know. You use the wrench to tighten it on. And so you're having to do this, but you're moving, like you're holding the device. These things are all going around you. You are trying to navigate and touch on the screen to grab the wheel and pull it onto car and then pull the other wheel over and then tighten on the wheels. And then you have to, right now it seems like, okay, Jamie, that's pretty weird that you feel like you're struggling with this. Well, that's because this is like early level. This goes fast. By 18, I was like, whoo, whoo, like throwing out those tires.
That I Love Lucy episode where they're in the chocolate factory.
It's true. It's true. And it just, I mean, you'll see here at the end when I finally lose, that it was like, this is, I can see the stress that would come with working in a place, an assembly line where I have to keep up, right? Like nobody's slowing down. There's plenty of people to work your job and you're just, you got to go. You got to keep going. When do you take a break? What if you got to go to the bathroom? Like, all those things that probably would come up in our normal daily life, our protections, if you will, as employees, just you didn't have that then. And so you can see I start losing it like right soon. Like I don't end up getting all the will on, but it was so hard. But I was proud that I got to 18 because the first time it was single digits. Okay, if I'm honest. Actually, the first time I couldn't even get one car done because I didn't, use the wrench to put on the wheel. But here, as you're seeing this go by, finally got 18 there. But, just being able to see like how quickly it happened. And then look, you're fired. That hits home as a student to see the struggles that people faced at this time and working in the Industrial Revolution, right? Like it's pretty wild. Any background information about this one?
Sure. So all those things are exactly what we wanted you to take away from this activity. And I think this one was so much fun to make. It came together kind of seamlessly with the team. And we really just wanted to put, students in the time and place of the Industrial Revolution. And because sometimes it's hard to connect, with the past and to kind of, understand, parts of history that you can't, really experience yourself. So here you kind of get to experience it in a smaller way. And here we wanted, wanted students to see like the innovation and the industry that came out of the Industrial Revolution, but also we wanted them to feel the frustration and the monotony of of working on the assembly line and the feeling, that, your job is always kind of at risk. So it's kind of, I think it's almost impossible to win the game. So because it goes so fast, but it's kind of fun to kind of see, how many tires you can assemble on your cars. But and that's exactly like that was a task that was done on the assembly line. Somebody, put a wheel on and screwed the lug nut. So yeah, that was, so I'm glad that that's what you came away from.
What do you have to get to win?
I don't remember. Do you
Okay. I think you can win. It is very hard. And I think, but it's almost like your reward is that you get extended hours.
Yeah, you get to keep working.
Yeah,
that's your reward.
Or you get like $5 or something.
You get $5 for the day pay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. It is very hard to get it. So to get rewarded with more work.
So I had a teacher actually use this not for the intended use, but they were doing a PBL on child labor laws, and they used this activity to as part of their experience as the kids were doing child labor and why it wasn't okay. So that was something that they came away with in a different angle that was really effective because the kids understood, I don't want to be working in a factory as a kid. I want to be at school learning now. So they were able to do the research and take the research into practice with this.
That's so true. Oh my goodness. That was stressful and fun and stressful. And now I want to go back and find out how many I need to get because I'm driven. Okay.
None of the kids got it either, just so you know.
Well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Okay. So this next one, who would like to talk through this one? This one I could never win, but I don't think anybody ever wins, correct?
Correct. You never, no one ever wins in trench warfare. And that's kind of, so this is another one that is, you know, it's a little bit of it was a riskier topic for us to kind of do, but we really thought it was important for to show kind of what, you know, a big part of World War One and the start of, you know, trench warfare. So this, you kind of you have different portions of the fight. Here you have there's artillery bombardment and an infantry charge and a creeping barrage, and you have to do them in the correct order in order to advance your men across the no man's land.
Right.
But and you get better results if you know use the correct military you know sequence.
Yeah.
But you're never really going to win, because we wanted students to come away with the understanding that, you know, trench warfare changed war, and it resulted in, you know, unprecedented numbers of casualties, and it was yeah, so that's what we wanted students to come away with.
Nobody wins. That's so
Yeah.
crazy.
You can get better results, but yeah.
I had better results before I recorded this. The recording was that clear. I actually tried to adjust something. I tried to change when I was tapping the different options.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, well, let me start here and give it a lot more time before I start here. And then whoa, hold on before I start sending people out, right? And so I was trying to like wait it out and see if that helped, and it actually had worse results. So
yeah, and you kind of learn the sequence before, like in the background information. So you will, you know, you'll get that information so you can use that in the activity.
Yeah, that's so cool. We have a question for you all. How can these type of learning activities support your learners? So if you're in CuriPod right now, think about some of the activities we just saw. Think about your specific learners. Like what would be the impact on them? Do you have students that might be hesitant? Do you have students that would be really excited? I know that oftentimes, you know, with new technology, students are ready and eager to test it out, and it just kind of gives that enthusiasm. Sometimes it means that it's on their own pace. They're able to play and learn and not have the struggle of keeping up with everybody in the class at the same speed and pace. So being able to have the flexibility for our individual learners. So we're curious, you know, what are your thoughts of how can these type of learning activities support your specific students? We have a couple more seconds. We only have 3 responses. No. I think people were writing a lot. It's okay. Let's look at those results and see. Yeah, I know I gave you a very short window of time, so I understand if you didn't get a chance to respond fully. Learn and play, absolutely. Visual, 100%. Real world application. Every single one of these. Visual learners, absolutely. This is great. Any other things that you, Renee or Virginia, you're noticing in these responses?
One of the things I've noticed, and some of them in the chat too that I'm looking through, this is a great way to foster growth mindset in your classroom, because they can fail and retry and fail and retry, and it really increases that power of yet. Like, I can't do it yet, but I'm going to keep trying. And that gives them that growth mindset of, I got this, I can keep doing it, especially with math, where so often they feel failed on a worksheet. This gives them that chance to not feel like they're failing at anything, that they're just playing a game, and it's just like a video game. Sometimes you lose all your lives and you got to go back to the beginning.
Yeah, it's true. And when you make a mistake in a classroom setting, typically it's like dun, dun, dun. But in this setting, it's like, oh, I can play again. Like I can play and play and play. And sometimes they're driven by that challenge, like I am, of not wanting to lose in the assembly line and, you know, and you be the best employee you can be. So that's great. Really good responses. Thank you all for sharing. All right, off to you, Renee.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. And we are going to look at the McGraw Hill site. I'm going to, Virginia, can you drop, or I'll drop the link in the chat. I think I have it. But there is a direct link to this site. It will ask you to register. It's free and they don't spam you, so don't worry about that. But it will show you all the lessons organized by their content area. And within the lessons, so coordinate plane, I'm actually doing next week with some of my teachers. It'll work for me today. But within the lessons, it comes along with a lesson plan, oops, and a student worksheet. Oh, I'm not signed in, that's why. Let me sign in. So I just used my Google School account to sign in, create an account, super easy, super quick. Like I said, it's free, and they're not going to spam you with a ton of stuff. So in the McGraw Hill app, we are just looking at the Industrial Revolution one. Once you click on the lesson, it gives you the overview of the lesson, your getting started portion, and then your teaching materials. And it has a lesson plan for you to download and also a student worksheet. So I know that my teachers always feel nice and cozy with the student worksheet so that they have that pencil paper verification and proof that they learned something. So use the worksheets. A lot of them have extension activities and questions on them, which for a lot of my special ed kids, they finally get to do that with this app. They get to that extension portion because they're so engaged and so able to do it that they finally get to that fun part of extending their learning. So this is the worksheet that comes along with the Industrial Revolution one, and here's your enrichment. So it's just a really great, well laid out lesson plan and worksheet. And here's your lesson plan for that one. So it has your overview, your objectives, your national standards, your materials that you need, how to launch it, your teacher tips, and how to evaluate. And these questions are the ones that come up on the app after they do the activity. There are some multiple choice questions that will pop up at the end of the activity for them to answer. So I would definitely recommend going ahead and getting your Verizon.com learning account because it is very, very helpful, very useful. You can have all the lessons you want for free on here and also access to the app that you can use on Chromebooks for students with just the math lessons right now.
Yeah, those lesson plans are gold. Oftentimes that's the biggest barrier for teachers to get started is actually having the resources to begin. Knowing exactly what you're doing, knowing what kind of questions will come up. Will you be prepared to answer those types of questions and collaborate on those things? So having all of the resources available to you even before you get started, I think is so valuable, but also having the extensions of, let's expand what we know about this and even extend it further. Here's a guidance to help you continue to dig into these topics further. So really, really good stuff.
Jamie, I know that we probably mentioned it in the first webinar, but for the teachers who do teach ELA, we know that those lessons are up and coming, but we do have ELA embedded in social studies. So within the social studies AR apps, we did try to connect a piece of literature to each one of those AR activities. And there are some questions in the evaluate too, just to give you a heads up. And there's a variety. There's poetry, there's nonfiction, there's speeches, all kinds of good stuff embedded in there.
I loved seeing the books, actually. I thought that was really cool. Connected the dots between even what was being written at that time, so you're almost immersed into the era of what you're learning about. That's so cool. I love seeing that.
And sometimes it's a good reverse connection too. If you're an ELA teacher and you want to teach about the time period, which is really great too.
That's what I was going to say, Jen, because I used to teach high school English. And I always tell everyone, you know, when you're introducing a new work of literature, like a novel or a play, something you're going to spend a lot of time on, or an era, like you are a history teacher for a little while because you want to get the kids into that time period, get them familiar with it so they can connect with it. And I mean, the trench warfare is a great example because, and usually like world lit or something, you might study trench poetry, you know? So it's a great way to sort of engage the students in that time period or era, even if you're an English teacher.
Yeah, I'm going to really shorten our activity here because we're coming to the close of our time. But we're going to gather kind of an idea of what type of game or activity would you like to see. So thinking about what your students are really into. I mean, I think sports typically come to mind, right? Some of the things that your students, like I loved seeing skateboarding because kids love doing skateboarding, you know, things that your students, their interests and their passions. What kind of things would you want to see embedded into the app too that align back directly into the content of which it's being shared? So I'm going to give you just a minute. I know right now it says 3 minutes and 23 seconds. We're going to cut it down to just a minute. So you're going to have to be super fast with your scribbles and be super precise, or maybe just type it in. Whatever you want to do, we're going to give you a chance to finish up. So I'm going to give you about 20 more seconds, and then I'm going to stop, and then we're going to quickly just look at those results. All right. We're down to our last 10 seconds. That's great. Okay, I'm going to stop now. Then I'm going to see those drawings. We're going to skip voting, and I'm just curious as to what those drawings look like. Oh, earth, soccer. Oh, percentage lessons, a circle. I understand I didn't give you very much time to deal with that. It could be talking about pie, right? So we have some shapes. Ooh, look at that. I have seen that in augmented reality before. That would be super cool. Some science experiments. So yeah, this is great. Thank you guys so much. Oh, a store. Oh, I love that idea. That would be so cool. Okay, so you guys have just inspired all of us to have some really good things ahead, and they are listening. This is definitely them hearing you out and hopefully seeing this right back into the product, which is so great. Not everybody does that. It's great to see McGraw Hill stepping up. And so here, just again, just a reminder, if you want to do a social post, make sure to have hashtag McGraw Hill. You don't have to have a visual. Just tell us something that was inspiring. Share something that could inspire other teachers to want to explore more. And then, of course, we're going to end with Virginia if she wants to share a little bit here about next week's webinar.
Yes. So next week, we're going to be really focusing on collaboration and group play. We do have a new feature we just released in some activities, one in each subject, that involves collaboration and group play. So we're going to really be digging into that next week. So please come back and you'll have lots more fun to learn. Thank you. And I put my email address in the chat. If you have questions, comments, feedback, whatever, send me an email or reply to your confirmation email. It goes to me, whatever's easier.
Thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and hope to see you next week. Bye,
yes,
everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.